Hello, my name is Mark Norton, and my penthouse always smelled of coffee, glass, and empty sky. At 5:42 a.m., before New York had even lit up its stained glass windows, news hit my phone. A push notification that sounded like a verdict. SEC officially opens investigation against Norton Capital. Probable manipulation of reports. I inhaled and suddenly heard a crunch, as if glass had cracked somewhere inside me. There was a cold cup in the kitchen for the second person. Lena, the lawyer and my fiancée, had left yesterday, leaving a note. I don't want to build a house on sand. I tore the note apart, but the words scattered across the floor like nails under bare feet. This is a mistake, I whispered. Our reports are perfect. We, came the empty voice. Green and red lights appeared in the boardroom chat. Some were silent, some demanded a plan. Only Patrick, my childhood friend and CFO, wrote, "Hold on. I'm with you." His avatar flickered, and there was something unsettling about that flicker. In the office, through the ripples of glass, I could see my billion-dollar horizon and think that once all this, the numbers, the logos, the holds of skyscrapers, had been built on something as fragile as trust. The call. An unknown number. "Mr. Norton, we advise you to voluntarily appear for the hearing." And a short pause. "Check the supporting files section of your intranet. You'll be interested." I opened the server and found the diary folder. In it, tablets, notes, draft simulations with the substitution of risk indicators. Dated the year we broke onto the stock exchange. Next to each file were the initials, PN, Patrick Norton, the one who is with you. My heart pounded like an elevator to the ground floor. I couldn't breathe from the cold, sticky thought. The betrayal wasn't on the outside. It was written in my handwriting, my last name. And yet, I didn't sign it. I stood by the panoramic window, and the world below glowed quietly, as if waiting for me to fall. When the evening news said questionable profit algorithms, personal initiative of the manager, I turned off the sound. In the silence, one question was clearly heard. If the truth kills your name, can you survive it? And I realized that this night would be longer than my career. We tried to do it quickly and correctly. A press briefing, an audit by an independent firm, a temporary withdrawal from operational management. Each step only stirred up the mud. The newspapers printed headlines with my face, which they had learned to photograph as if it always had a shadow. Cameras stood outside the office like cold flowers. Investors called with desperate politeness. Former partners joined the lawsuits. Those who called me brother in Houston bars wrote statements with exact dates and amounts. "You know what it is." Patrick lowered his eyes when we finally met. "Everyone does it. Adjustments, regrouping, a little cosmetics. We just gave the market what it wanted to see." "We?" I tasted metal on my tongue. "Your initials are there. Because I was covering for you," he said almost gently. "You wanted a quick IPO. I just found a way." I laughed, briefly and quietly, from impotence. There was so much pain in that laugh that even the glass seemed softer. Then the lawyers came into the office. They talked about mutual risks, correct rhetoric, the vector of public perception. Lena sent me an SMS. "Don't hide anything anymore. You are not who you sell yourself to be." Her words met my reflection on the black screen, and I hated that reflection. When the government inspectors came, I handed over documents that showed certain income models were overheated, reporting behavior was aggressive, sometimes falsified. I allowed access to the correspondence. Without realizing it, I myself signed for my own downfall, because I had a strange, unbearable need to do at least something honestly. The market responded instantly. Capitalization fell like a rock into the void. The board of directors unanimously fired me. Patrick became the temporary leader. He smiled blandly, repeated about stabilization. At night, I went to the river. The water was dark, and in it were reflected the windows of people who did not know my name. I felt an emptiness in my chest, thick and heavy, like tar. That same evening, I lost not only my position and reputation. I lost the phone call from Lena because I decided not to answer. She did not call again. And when the news called me the architect of illusion, I suddenly realized the most terrible thing. I was building my own cage. Every right action of mine came too late. Every honest answer, when they were no longer asked. I fell to the floor, and the silence dissolved me like salt in water. I disappeared from the public map. I rented a cheap apartment near an old dock where the mornings smelled of fish and rust. I took off my watch that cost a Jersey apartment, and for the first time in years I felt the weight of my own wrist. The silence was like pain, but a voice had emerged from it. An old one. A familiar one. "You were always in a hurry," the voice said. I turned. Standing in the doorway was Samuel Kane, the former finance professor who had once thrown me out of a classroom for calling ethics an obstacle to innovation. "It seems you finally stopped." "If you're here to gloat, I don't have the budget for it," I said. He smiled. I came with a folder. The folder was thin, dark gray. Inside were printed letters. Not mine. Patrick. His correspondence with consultants from a shadow fund that bought our shares before they adjusted reports and dumped them afterwards. The manipulation didn't save the company. It fed a few. At the very bottom was an options contract signed the week before our IPO, with hidden beneficiaries, including a charitable trust in Lena's name. I watched until the words turned to smudges. "That's impossible," I whispered. "She didn't know," Kane said. "Her name was used because you trusted her, which meant the audit would have been missed. Someone knew your weaknesses well." For the first time in a long time, I felt not anger but cold clarity. The professor talked about the order of evidence, about a chain of transactions that could be reconstructed. "But why are you helping me?" I asked. He shrugged. "You once said that ethics were a drag. I want to see what you have to say now. And I lost a student when you chose instant fame. Maybe I'll get him back." At night, we sat over the papers like two conspirators. Only our conspiracy was against the darkness. I saw patterns I hadn't seen before. How fake risk models propped up other people's profits. How my pride replaced the check. How the people I loved most became routes for money. At dawn, I felt that the night had burned out for the first time. At the end of the folder was the key, a letter addressed to me, dated the same morning the first check arrived. The sender was anonymous. The text, "You know enough already." I looked up. "It's a trap," I said. "Or a door," Kane said. "You decide." And in my chest, amidst the tar and ashes, a thin vein sprouted. Hope, without pathos, without music. Just a whisper. Maybe. We gathered everything. Documents, diagrams, letters, extracts from registers. I returned to the city that had devoured me yesterday and knocked on the same door that had closed on me. I brought to the board of directors not an excuse, but a map of the mind that had been working beneath us for years. Patrick sat as still as a statue, and only his fingers betrayed the nerve. The tips trembled slightly. "You blame yourself," he said quietly, "and so you shift it to me. That's human." "I blame myself for allowing you to become me," I replied. "But today I am neither a victim nor a messiah. I am a witness." I pressed play. The recording of the call, which we had received legally because it concerned the corporate line. Patrick's voice dryly discussed painted models, windows of opportunity, and blurring of responsibility, and pronounced Lena's name as a convenient wrapper. One of the directors swallowed so loudly that it became a second soundtrack. "You think the government will help you?" Patrick hissed. "They want blood. It's easier for them to hang all the dogs on you." "Maybe," I said, "but I'm not making a deal today." We went to the SEC with the professor. I handed over my defense and my pride like documents in a transparent file, admitting my own negligence, explaining in detail the mechanics of the abuse, demanding changes to the corporate model, offering to testify publicly against myself and against him. The prosecutor was silent for a long time, then said, "You just made a bet against yourself." I nodded. In the evening, when darkness fell again over the city, Lena stood on my doorstep. Her eyes were tired. "I didn't know, Mark," she said, "but I knew you could close your eyes. And I didn't want to be a curtain. I didn't come to apologize. I came to say, do it to the end, and don't take the fast one again." I didn't touch her hand. At that moment, all or nothing meant one thing: to cease to belong to my reflection. I went out onto the roof. The city was noisy like the sea. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of its waves. The next morning, the stock fell even lower. But in the press room where I had sold dreams before, I said only 4 sentences. I am guilty of wanting to win quickly. I am responsible. I will testify. And I will return every cent that was taken in my name. The cameras were silent, but the silence was different, full of oxygen. The trial dragged on for months. I pleaded guilty and signed a plea deal, fines, a ban on running public companies for a period of time, public lectures for young entrepreneurs. Patrick got his, not from me, but from a system that sometimes wakes up late, but wakes up. Lena went to another city and worked pro bono for people who would never say my last name. Professor Kane sat in the back of every hearing, sometimes nodding when I answered honestly, and not nodding when I dodged difficult words. I learned to say guilty without breaking down. That turned out to be harder than raising billions. When it all died down, I rented a small office, one room with a view of the fire escape. I hung a table on the wall, not with reports, but with 10 names of startups that we supported from the new fund, transparent, without glitter, with boring rules that save lives. At the first lecture, a guy in the back row asked, "Is it possible to be rich and honest?" I fell silent. In the pause, I heard myself, the old one, bold, shiny, empty. "You can be honest and not be afraid of wealth," I replied. "But if the question is either or, always choose honesty. Otherwise, you will build a house on the water and call it an island." At night, when the city was shining again, I opened a letter from Lena. "I still believe that you are a person who can be loved. Just love the truth more than yourself." I smiled. This story did not give me back my old name. It gave me something else, the ability to live not as a brand, but as a person who sometimes makes mistakes but doesn't hide his hands behind his back. Can you buy back the past? No, the past is not for sale. But you can pay in advance for the future, with your own transparency, your own actions, your own willingness to say, "I did this, and this is how I'm going to fix it." What's more important, truth or success? The choice is not romantic. Without truth, success becomes someone else's. And can you be rich and honest? Yes, if you remember that honesty is not a lapel pin, but a scar on your heart. It hurts, but it keeps you in rhythm. I turned off the light in the office. Outside the window, the dead stars of the billboards spoke to me with their cold shine. And somewhere higher, beyond their brilliance, there were other stars, those that don't sell. And I walked home, thinking that perhaps I had finally stopped choosing the short way and started choosing my own path.